Paul, so over 62,000 people were granted asylum in this country last year, a record high. To many, that will seem unsustainable.
Well, yes, it may do. I mean, there's two ways of looking at it. One is that the UK has got its act together and is granting status to people that deserve it. And secondly, that the UK has lost control of its borders. The answer is probably somewhere in the middle. But it's important to note that the reason why there have been so many grants is because the Home Office actually did get its act together a little bit in making a large number of decisions towards the end of last year. And then the other point, which has to be borne in mind, is that of the 10 most productive countries, if you can call it that generate asylum seekers, places like Afghanistan, Syria, Sudan and Eritrea, 99% of the people are accepted by the Home Office as being genuine refugees. So you could say it's an abject failure, or you could say that the UK is fulfilling its international obligations.
It's always difficult in these settings because we've signed up to these treaties that were formulated, often written by the British in the wake of the Second World War, in a world before the jet engine and before the sort of mass migration that we see today. To some people, it does seem very, very strange that, given these obligations that we have signed up to, our international obligations are, in many cases, could be assessed, if everyone so choose to come to the UK, there would be billions of people around the world who would theoretically be eligible for asylum in this country.
Well, you are completely right. According to the UN definition, or the UNHCR definition of a refugee, anyone fleeing on the basis of their race, ethnicity, as a number of two of the criteria, would qualify. Obviously, it's very difficult for very poor people in, say, sub-Saharan Africa to make their way to the United Kingdom. I mean, it has to be borne in mind that the concept of refugees and persecution does go back to pre the Second World War. And you are right. I think it was a British barrister that wrote an awful lot of the ECHR, and it was supported by Winston Churchill. So I think that it's important to put it into context, and that might sound a lawyerly answer, but if one looks at the 60 or 70,000 people that claimed asylum last year, and you put that in the context of the 1.3 million people that were granted visas to enter the United Kingdom, it's quite clear that the irregular entrants to the United Kingdom, of which 2/3 are entitled to be here under international law, it's 95% arrived lawfully and 5% arrived irregularly. Now, it seems that the focus can be unfairly on asylum seekers when there's a bigger picture here, which is the 1.3 million people that were granted leave to enter the country lawfully.
Paul, a lot of people would assume that our asylum system would prioritise women and children, but in fact the figures show that it is mostly adult males who have been granted asylum in this country. They account for the majority. It seems to some that perhaps there is a bit of a first-come, first-serve basis for our asylum system, rather than actually granting asylum to the people who most need it.
Well, Emily, I completely agree with you. I mean, women and children, and the UK does have an obligation to look after or put the children's best interests first, often miss out. Whereas a lot of the migrants that come here that are easy to process would be, say, single males that have made the journey from Afghanistan, for example, or Syria. And that probably skews the figures. But there are good legal arguments as to why women and women and children ought to have their claims prioritised. And it can seem a little unsettling that if you have enough money to get here and you're a young, fit, single male from Afghanistan, you've got a much better chance of getting status quicker than if you are an unaccompanied child.
I suppose that's an argument about safe and legal routes more than anything else, Paul.
Well, this is something that I've harped on about, and I know many of my colleagues have. If there were safe and legal routes, then the genuine migrants could be weeded out in, say, countries next to a country that is troubled, and then people could be granted visas and then could make their way to the United Kingdom. It could be done in a more orderly manner. And it would mean that genuine people, and not just people that come from a poor country but family have money.
Well, do you think more safe and legal routes would actually stop people from coming by irregular means? I'm not sure it would in practice.
It may or it may not. What you need to, what I would say is necessary from a legal point of view is that, and the government did pass a bill saying that if you claimed asylum and you arrived by way of a small boat, you were going to be declared inadmissible. Now, if there was a safe and legal route and you could go from, say, Afghanistan, for example, to Pakistan and have your asylum claim processed and then come to the UK lawfully, be received, have your status, then, and if you came irregularly or you were travelled by a small boat and you were denied the opportunity to claim asylum, you were denied housing or given the minimum housing and you were removed, then that would make it less attractive as a business model to the people traffickers that quite frankly get rich out of this.
Well, Paul Turner, immigration barrister, thank you very much